This video is only one part of an in-depth review, so check out the rest at thegoodride.com. Thanks for watching. Welcome to The Good Ride, where I've been trying my best to suck less for way past a decade now. I'm James Beastie. This is the Burton Territory Manager. I rode this with Union Atlas and Burton Kendos. Then I did a sampler one day with a lot of quick release and step-on bindings. The Burton Step-On, the Burton Genesis Step-On, the Burton Photon Step-On boot was used for those. Then I put on my Kendos and did a test with Clue bindings versus Supermatic. And I also compared those against Burton Cartel X and Burton Genesis Reflex. I got this in pretty good conditions, everything from some good groomers to a decent amount of late spring powder that felt more like midwinter powder. Pretty good times. And to give you a short summary, it's a board that has some unique aspects, but also a lot of overlap with the Family Tree 3D Daily Driver and the Hometown Hero, but they call it a tapered directional twin. And it definitely takes things a little softer, a little more playful than the Hometown Hero, has a different sizing range than the Hometown Hero, and a little more centered, a little less tapered, a little less directional feel than those boards. If you're looking for that tapered, directional, mountain freestyle, twinish type feel that rides really well centered, the Burton Territory Manager could work for you. So when it comes to sizing, it has a 154 and then the next size up is a 160. The 160 seems like it's going to be a little big for my size 9 boots, but probably better for my weight. The 154 felt a little too small for me. I'd love it if they had like a 58. I think that might be a really good fit for my size 9 boots, my 185 to 90 pounds, and my 5'10 frame. I think that would be more ideal for me. I wish they had something in between the 54 and the 60, because going up 6 whole centimeters is a lot. Now, when it comes to shape, this is tapered directional. It's got 8 mil of taper, but they have that balanced free ride geometry. It almost feels like a non-tapered board in groomers and then more like a tapered board in powder. So that's kind of cool. And it has this directional camber profile with a little early rise in the nose, and then the rest of it's camber. And that's a little more on the technical locked in side of things, but it's still not as bad as full-on traditional camber, but still more for advanced to expert riders, I would say. It one foots really well, it flat bases really well, it's really easy on a long flat cat track to track well, and it doesn't do that kind of auto spinny thing that their Flying V does. It's okay to skid a turn when you get off your game, but it's better that you stay on your game. And it has a really good all conditions ride, with the exception of one thing, and that's edge hold. And when it comes to edge hold, it just lets go a little easier in hard patches than a lot of its peers in the industry. But still, it's pretty competent edge hold, and if you know what you're doing, it's gonna be fine. Now let's talk flex here. It is a interesting flex. It's more medium stiff, but more on the medium side of medium stiff. You can see there's a little bit of give in the nose and a little bit of give at the very tip of the tail. Buttering was doable at my weight on a 154, 185, 190 pounds. I found that I could butter it around and play around a little bit on it much better than all the boards I rode this time around. I would say except for maybe the Deep Thinker. That is just so soft, buttery, and playful in comparison. But it's definitely easier than the Hometown Hero. And I would say it's kind of on par, maybe a little easier because it doesn't have the lifted sides than the 3D Daily Driver. Burton just does pop really well. It just felt like I signed up for the Ollie Assist program. It just made everything a little bit better for me and my average ass riding. I just felt like I could ollie better with this board than I could with a lot of other boards, and so I liked that. Now, when it comes to uneven snow and how this flex personality interacts in all types of terrain, I would say hard micro bumpy snow handles no problem other than the edge hold. It doesn't get too cranky, it doesn't get too chattery, and when you're in softer, wet snow, especially for a 54, it didn't get too bucky and bouncy, but it is a little more of a lively ride than many of the other family tree boards, so it can spring a little bit more and bounce you off your game a little bit more, but it's still very doable. Now, when it comes to pointing it, you want to be on the first cut because that's a bomber. But for a board like this, that's more kind of like a tapered mountain freestyle board, the way they're marketing it, I would call it like all mountain, tapered all mountain. I think this has very good mountain speed. It's competent, it's doable, the flex is good enough, and the dampening is good enough to handle a pretty moderate to aggressive straight line. And the base glide is upper tier, but not amazing, and I feel like Burton's bases these days can sometimes get a little chalky, so you need to really put some time into waxing this board when you first get it and getting that base to respond, and it really likes the Burton wax, so go with that probably than other waxes. Sometimes they can make this base feel more chalky. They're doing stuff with green technologies, so the base is a little more finicky than it used to be, but it's more environmentally friendly, so I think it's a worthwhile sacrifice. When it comes to turn initiation, this is pretty quick edge to edge, but again, I felt like I was on a little bit too small of a board for my size, but it was quick and doable, and I think even if I was on a 160, it would go where I wanted it to when I needed it to. When I got it on edge, the side cut feels pretty balanced. It feels like it can be turny when it wants to. It can be a little more down the line when it wants to, but that doesn't feel like it's super strong point, especially coming off the first cut and then going to this. But overall, it's pretty balanced, and I had no problem. And I found myself wanting to kind of throw it around switch a lot. And so it had more of that centered feel, and you didn't really have to throw a lot of back foot weight into this on a carve. I felt more centered, and I felt like I could drive off the front foot pretty well, ride centered, carve through centered pretty well, and lean into the tail pretty well too. It may be just a touch more back foot weight makes this spring out of a turn more, but it's way less than all the other tapered directional boards in Burton's line. And all of them have that balanced free ride geometry thing where they make the side cut work more like a non-tapered board, so it feels less washy and less tapered on the tail in groomers. And I think a lot of people will like that. So overall, just good spring and pop out of a turn, especially for a board like this. Now, when it comes to powder, you don't have that much setback on board compared to the Hometown Hero, the Flight Attendant, and I think even the Cartographer is better. At a 22-inch stance width set all the way back on the Burton recommended stance lines here, you can get 2.5 inches back from center of board. So that's like really good for an all mountain board, and I think that's more like what they're marketing this as and not really a true free ride board. When I set it all the way back and rode in some decent powder, I felt like, yeah, there were other boards that were much easier to ride, but it's no slouch for what it is. And ride and switch was very doable, especially for this much taper. It definitely feels different. It's not like somehow it's magically a twin when you throw it around switch with that 8 mil of taper, but it's way better than almost any other board with 8 mil of taper I've tried, and a lot better than a lot of other boards with even less taper than that. So in conclusion, I like this board. I had a good time on it. At first I wasn't that stoked on it because it seemed to be more of the same. It had a lot of overlap with the 3D Daily Driver and the Hometown Hero. It has some similarities to some other boards in Burton's line too. And I felt like with all the designs over the years that they could draw from and enhance and update, they chose another one of these. I was a little disappointed, but now I get it. Now I see where it sits in the line. It definitely takes that family tree line a little closer towards that double ender kind of true one board quiver for those that like to ride switch and do a little bit of everything on the mountain. This is pretty good. All our reviews are a best effort, objective opinion from an average rider's perspective. There's no brand oversight, and we're free to say whatever we want. We send back everything unless it's a favorite, then we ask to keep those or straight up buy them. Now, if you need advice, fill out the Me Harmony profile in the Contact Us section of the site. It's the only way I can help you properly. If you want to support us, and if what we reviewed appeals to you, it helps if you buy through our links. So, thanks for watching.